I don't know what I want, Céline, you know. And I'm like, yes, you do. We all already know what we want. We just don't give ourselves permission to want what we want. If you are staying in that connection with your pleasure, when it's really leading the show and you're truly following it, things open up. What I'm also seeing is a transformation that happens on a deeper level, which is all about tuning in rather than looking on the outside. I think that's what really is the biggest gift that we get, is that not having to compare ourselves all of the time, not having to look for something on the outside to bring us that sense of joy.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today our topic is pleasure. Now, I'm not talking about the pleasure of an amazing meal or a great conversation. I'm not even talking about the pleasure of achieving a goal or looking fine in those skinny jeans. I'm talking about the pleasure of being in your body. Sensual pleasure, sexual pleasure, the pleasure that's your birthright simply for being born a woman. And our guest today knows a lot about pleasure. Céline Remy is a holistic sexologist and creator of The Irresistible Woman, an 8-week mastery program that can help morph you into the most radiant, sexiest, most playful, and juiciest version of yourself possible. She uses a unique body-based methodology to crack open her clients through pleasure. And today she's going to teach us how we can start powering ourselves up with pleasure. Welcome, Céline. Okay, there we go. Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today our topic is pleasure. Now, I'm not talking about the pleasure of a great meal or an amazing conversation. I'm not even talking about the pleasure of achieving a goal or looking fine in those skinny jeans. I'm talking about the pleasure of being in your body. Sensual pleasure, sexual pleasure, the pleasure that's your birthright simply by being born a woman. Now, our guest, Céline Remy, has a lot to say about pleasure. She's a holistic sexologist and creator of The Irresistible Woman, an 8-week mastery program that helps morph you into the juiciest, sexiest, most radiant and playful version of yourself possible. She uses a unique body-based methodology to crack open her clients through pleasure. And today she's going to talk to us about how we can start powering ourselves up through pleasure. Welcome, Céline.
Thank you, Amy. I'm so happy to be here.
So I have to ask, when we think about pleasure in normal everyday conversation, we think of things like shopping or like chocolate. Mm-hmm. How is the pleasure you're talking about different?
That's a great question. It is different, and at the same time, it is not. Because pleasure, like all the things that you mentioned previously, I think are part of the big umbrella of pleasure. So pleasure can be physical. And so in the physical, we have, that primal, like laughter, and we have the sensual, we have the sexual, but pleasure can also be emotional, like that connection with somebody. It could be mental, like you were talking about, like having a great idea or having a conversation that just stimulates your mind in such a way that you get so turned on. Pleasure can be spiritual as well, which is, beyond just the physical, but into that interconnectedness with everybody and everything, where you can become like omni-orgasmic, where everything gets to be an experience that gets you juicy and turned on.
So how do we do it? This sounds wonderful, but in our everyday life, let's be honest, we're doing jobs, we're going to work, we're stressed out, we're tired, we're collapsing into bed. How do we get more pleasure in our lives?
That's a great place to start, because most people, especially women, find it really difficult. The first thing is to give yourself permission to have pleasure. and to want what you want. Because most of the things that I hear all the time is like, oh, but I don't know what I want, Céline, you know. And I'm like, yes, you do. We all already know what we want. We just don't give ourselves permission to want what we want. And that is really the very first step, to acknowledge that you are a human being that is having senses that are designed to be turned on and ignited, and giving yourself permission to ignite all of these senses and feel through everything that you have, your body and every senses.
But what if we do that and we quit our job and we run away to Europe and we have an affair because we're so in love with our pleasure? Because this is the whole American way. You know, we think that we have to be hardworking and pleasure is a sin.
Mm. You know, there is an idea that when you live your life following your heart's desire and the things that turn you on, your pleasure, that it increases the quality of your life. So when you quit your job, are you quitting your job and then thinking, oh my God, how am I going to make rent, and running all of these thoughts all the time? Or are you quitting your job and then suddenly everything opens up and you're just like, I can't wait to go travel to Europe. I'm going to meet these people and those people. I mean, as a matter of fact, I have traveled with very little money. When I came to the US, I only had $200 in my pocket. And it has been 12 years. And so if you are staying in that connection with your pleasure, when it's really leading the show, and you're truly following it, things open up. You might meet somebody, have that affair that you're talking about, that juicy, hot, loving relationship. You might find a new job that really lifts you up from the inside. Or you might be guided to, like, I don't know, you go to a center and people are suddenly looking for a yoga teacher and somebody who's going to clean the bed and breakfast, which is something that happened to me. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that, you know. I can teach yoga and be your cleaning lady at the same time. Yeah, awesome. Like, things open up. So the question is, are you in your fear? And so, yes, you're thinking you're in your pleasure, but in reality, it's the fear that are running the show. Or are you really, truly in that juicy place?
So what are the consequences if we don't live a life from pleasure? Because a lot of us think that pleasure is a luxury. You know, we like giving pleasure to other people. You know, that's great. But in our own lives, you know, we really don't need it because we're just focusing. We're doing what we should do. And, you know, maybe we're afraid. We're afraid of who we're going to turn into if we give rein to that pleasure. Or how would our lives change if we suddenly said, I'm going to look for this pleasure in everything?
I think there's a lot of things that can happen. You know, if we stay on a physical level, things that can change is like, wow, you can finally have those orgasms that you've been wanting, or like, you know, like really feel them into your body. Have this joy, innate joy. I mean, you can feel your immune system get boosted. I mean, you age less faster when you are in your pleasure. I mean, all of these things on a physical level do happen. What I'm also seeing is a transformation that happens on a deeper level, which is all about tuning in rather than looking on the outside. And especially for us as women, you know, we are trained to be comparing each other so much. And so we're like, oh my God, so Amy looks beautiful today, so it's going to make me look less than beautiful because she is. And that's really not what it is. It's like, oh my God, her beauty inspires my own beauty. I love her unique expression, and it just gives me permission to unlock that from within. And so that's what really is the biggest gift that we get, is that not having to compare ourselves all of the time, not having to look for something on the outside to bring us that sense of joy. Because when I talk about pleasure, I really feel that it's really bundled up with the joy and the radiance. And so that really then comes from within, and we're not depending on an advertisement for the next face cream that's going to make us look good, or those jeans that make us look skinny. It's more about how we feel from within.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And one of the things you do is you've got this Irresistible Woman program. And so part of pleasure is becoming more irresistible. And what is that link there?
Yeah. You know, when we think of becoming irresistible, one of the big objections that I hear from women is like, well, then I have to learn these tactics, this manipulation, because that's one of the things we've learned. Like, we're like, okay, so you got to talk a certain way, walk a certain way, wear a certain kind of outfits or makeup on. And that's definitely not the path that I'm talking about. Another objection that I hear is like, I don't want to be, I had somebody tell me one day, I don't want to be irresistible. I just want to be me. And I'm like, this is what being irresistible is all about. Being irresistible is about being so authentically yourself that people can't help but be drawn to you, that things are magnetized. You are so radiating that pleasure, joy, turned on, radiance, vibrancy, all of that. People want to be around. They just like, I don't know why. Like, people come to me like, I don't know why. I just want to sit next to you, or I don't know why I felt called to talk to you. And so the link is really that, is finding more, unlocking your voice from within, finding really who you are authentically in the world as a woman.
So there's an issue with some people, and I've definitely had this problem before, and that is when you're happy and when you're really enjoying yourself, you stand out. And people notice. And sometimes that can be really uncomfortable. Like, how many times have you been dancing and so you're just having a wonderful time, you're lost in the music, and then suddenly you realize somebody's looking at you. And suddenly, boom, you're like, ooh, can't do that. I've got to dance conventionally because I lost myself there. I surrendered to the flow of pleasure, and I'm not supposed to do that in public because people will look at me. How do we get over that self-consciousness?
I think simply by doing it. You know, and it's just a matter of understanding that it is a principle of the feminine. We draw things to us. And so it just means, yeah, hooray, you are much more in your feminine. Celebrate it. You know, if somebody looks at you, and just be like, take in that energy and shine even more. There are actually some very ancient societies from the Taoists, so in ancient China, okay, and there's a lineage called the white tigress. And from that lineage, they have all these different sexual practices, which I teach some of them, by the way, in the Irresistible Women. But one of the technique is to go out and purposefully either, you know, show a little bit of skin, wherever it's a little bit of like cleavage or like an underwear, and pretend you don't know that you're doing it, but doing it on purpose so that other people, especially men, because in there it's kind of like, yeah, like male, female, men, women, look at you and give you their energy so that you receive it. And then there's a way to learn to circulate this energy into your body so that you cultivate immortality and beauty. This is not exactly what we're doing in the Irresistible Women, but this is not a new concept. That's why I'm sharing that, is that it has been around for thousands of years. So how do you get over it? Just take it as a gift. Take it in. Shine brighter. And you know, like, there's a quote. I don't know who said that quote, but you know, when people say you're too much, it's like, it's just like, it's not that I'm too much. You're just not enough. You know, that person's just not enough for you. Like, you're not too much. It's just like, those can't rise to your level. So find people that encourage your radiance. So really, what do? Change friends. Find women. My women friends encourage me to like be bold, be sexy. They love it if we go out on a girls' night, we check each other out, and we're like, you're hot today. I love that dress. Yeah, I'm like proud to walk next to my girlfriends. So I surround myself with people who support me in that experience.
So let's talk about energy. What I'm hearing from you is that pleasure is actually some way to charge us up emotionally, because when we're filled with pleasure, we feel more energetic, we feel more joy, we feel more that we can do more in our lives. So is perhaps one of the reasons that so many of us struggle with fatigue and with just being tired, let's talk about, tired of life. Maybe it's because we haven't quite learned how to take in that pleasure.
Bingo. And it's not so much, I think it's how we approach pleasure. It's something that I talk about a lot in terms of the energy. We live in a world that's valuing the masculine so much more. And when we talk about masculine and feminine, it's just energy. It's not gender specific. And so the way we tend to approach pleasure is very, very masculine, which is like, I want to have an orgasm. I'm going to do these strokes or these moves so that I get to that. My orgasm is the end and I move on. And so even when we go like, okay, I'm going to do this practice. And one of the biggest things that happens, even when women learn some of these practices that we're talking about, whether it's a breast massage or it's using, a jade egg inside your vagina, like all of these things that we start to talk about in the media a little bit. And so when women start to learn that, they put it on their to-do list, and that becomes one more thing to do, and it becomes draining. So it's not so much about what you do, but it's about how you do it. So it's an internal switch and shift that we have to turn on and do. And that's what makes it that then it becomes fueling rather than draining.
So what we need to know then is what's pleasurable for us, because I think a lot of us look for pleasure. What do other people say is pleasurable? You know, like I watched that advertisement and they say that using this shampoo is going to give me so much pleasure, so I'm going to go buy the shampoo and shampoo my hair, and oh well, I guess that was fine. You know, so how do we find out what's really pleasurable for us rather than looking for it in the cars we drive or the products we use or the clothes we wear?
Mm-hmm. It's a great place to start with the things that you mentioned if you don't know where to start. But your pleasure shouldn't depend so much on something else. So you can enjoy the experience. It is fine to enjoy, hey, when I put on this sweater today and I was like, this is the color I want to be in. And I just like really enjoyed how it felt on my body, how it looks, and that's perfect, you know. But don't make it this sole focus, but experiment. It's not because somebody says that pleasure is XYZ that it means that's what it is for you. Find what's true for you. Find ways to have pleasure with nothing. Like sit down rather than chasing pleasure again like we do, because that's kind of what we're stuck in, especially when we're in the material. We're chasing that pleasure. And I don't think that there's ever a time where we feel totally, fully satiated, especially as women. This is a deep longing to be filled. And so we're always going to want to be filled, you know, and go for something. So it's kind of like slowing things down, sitting. Can you have pleasure just through the way you breathe right now? Like pause for a second, feel that inhale fully. It's how you take in pleasure. And then exhale fully. This is how you give pleasure. Are you holding the breath? Are you not giving your breath out very much? Like notice, how's the breath? Can you have pleasure just through your breathing? What would it take? Would you have to shift a little bit because maybe the pillow that you're on is not comfortable? You are outside. You can take pleasure from the beauty of the trees, the flowers, but then you can also take it further where you could breathe in that energy into you. And you can do that with anything. So you can find it into a sunset, when you do a walk, when you talk to somebody. Right now, when we're talking, like having pleasure from this conversation, so really focusing on breathing in fully and feeling it all the way.
So you teach these things. You've got this Irresistible Woman course. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can. So it's really a journey. The Irresistible Woman is an 8-week journey. And what we do with it is the first thing that we look into is defining, putting that foundation. Okay, what is feminine? What is masculine? What is my feminine essence? So we kind of move the things that are in the way, the resistance to pleasure, because we all have that. And that's something we can talk more about later. But so the first thing we do is kind of creating that foundation, understanding how energy works, how you can turn it on, turn it off, and getting that strong connection. Once you know that, we go into connecting and getting in touch with yourself. Creating a loving, caring relationship with yourself. We know how we spend so much time doing this with others, caring for others, and forgetting that, hey, we are just as equally important. So we then focus in terms of either recreating or creating a deep relationship where we get in touch with ourselves, and we will get in touch with ourselves physically as well, on all the different levels. And then the third part is the art of giving, receiving, and enhancing pleasure. And so that's like the really juicy part, because we are looking at different practices that will help you not only take your very own personal relationship, but the relationship, if you have a lover, to a different level, bringing confidence and creativity in your sensuality and sexuality, because most women, we don't really know what to do. Most of us, we look at porn and we go like, this is not for me. It's not like you're not getting good education there. And it's hard to find really good education when you're like, how do I touch my lover? How do I touch myself? How do I create something that's really deeper than just a physical sexual act, that it becomes rewarding and that there's no more separation, that sexuality and spirituality are all one and the same. So we go through different practices and tools and really awesome demos that I give you. So we go like full on graphic, but we still do it in a way that is really respectful. So that's kind of the process of the 8 weeks journey that we dive in. And really at the end, it's about rebirthing yourself into the woman you want to be, that you create your very own definition of what it means to be a woman for yourself, and morphing into that most vibrant, juiciest, sexiest, playful, radiant version of yourself.
That's wonderful. And for those of you listening, if you want to check it out, we've got a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/irresistible. That's yourbrilliance.org/irresistible. Now we're coming to an end, and thank you, Céline, so much. This has been fabulous. And I wanted to know if you had one last message for our watchers.
What I'd like to leave you with is pleasure is not a luxury. Pleasure is essential. It should be the foundation of everybody's life. Imagine what the world would be like if we all lived from our turned on. We women are agent of change. I mean, the Dalai Lama said that. Everybody knows that. How different would you show up for your family, for yourself, for the world if you were really in touch with your pleasure? So you actually owe it to yourself and to the world to really reconnect with that part of yourself, and not just reconnect, but share your pleasure, spread your pleasure, and live from that place.
Thank you so much, Céline. And I'm Amy Waterman for yourbrilliance.com. Thank you out there so much for watching, and we hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.